When do you think this video was made? 1624 or 2024? Yes, it's from 2024. Videos from 1624 are not available online. They're in libraries, obviously. But the scene does look like it could be 1624, right? That's because we are in Kazimierz, Krakow's Jewish Quarter, which is one of the best preserved Jewish quarters in Europe. So let's go back to 1620s. Hell, let's go back to 1520s and learn about some people who lived here at that time and actually passed this very building, which was already standing here in 1520s. My name is Zuzanna Waligura. I'm a state licensed guide in Krakow, Poland, helping you to get the most out of the experience in my beautiful city. We are in Kazimierz, the Jewish Quarter. It's an absolute must-do here, but usually you will find information about the vibrant nightlife, the vintage shops, artisan cafes here. But what is really most important are all these authentic historic Jewish sites, which are the perfect canvas to learn about the history of Jews in Poland, Jewish culture in general, and people and their history that goes back here all the way to 1495. In this video, you will get to know some people connected with Krakow's Jewish Quarter. The tales of them have been passed on from generation to generation of Krakow's Jews. Then, if you ever come to Krakow and to Kazimierz and you walk the cobbled streets or you go to the Remuh cemetery, you will feel a real connection with this place because you will remember these stories of hard choices, extreme devotion, and ghosts. Did I say ghosts? Well, that's because there will be ghosts. Ready for the time machine? Let's go. Around the year 1520, there was a man in Krakow whose name was Israel Isserl. He was a Jewish man, a banker and a merchant working for a Polish king who lived here in Krakow and for the royal court. He had a huge shop with all kinds of products that you can only imagine. He was a great businessman, but he was also very, very devoted. Every Friday before Sabbath, he closed his shop especially early. He always closed it at noon so that he would have enough time to go back home and prepare for Sabbath. One Friday, late in the morning, there came a rich-looking man into his shop. And the man started looking around. He spent about an hour. It was already 11:30 in the morning. So the owner, Israel Isserl, approached him and told him that soon he was going to close his shop and it was time to make the purchase. The client just looked at him in a strange way and told him, "Come on, why would you close your shop so soon? It's not even noon. Give me time. I have a very, very important purchase to make. I am going to buy half of everything that you have in your shops, half of all your products. I'm going to buy them, but I need more time to look through them and pick everything. I need the time." Israel told him nicely that unfortunately this was impossible because this was his tradition, that he always closed the shop at 12 o'clock. The Jew laughed at him and he said, "Come on, it's so much time before Sabbath. This is going to be the business of your lifetime. I'm going to purchase so much from you." Israel was getting a little bit angry, so he said, "No, he's closing the shop soon and that's it." So the client also got nervous, told him if he closes the shop, if he tells him to go, he will never ever come back and never make the purchase. Israel told him that was too bad and asked him again to leave. The client left. Israel Isserl closed his shop, went home to prepare for the Sabbath, and then went to the synagogue to pray. He lost the business of his lifetime, but he stuck to his tradition and he made sure he had enough time to properly prepare for Sabbath. Business-wise, this was a big loss for him, but it was noticed in the heavens how devoted he was. So exactly 9 months later, his son was born. His son that was given the name Moshe Isserl, or Moses Isserl. And that son eventually became the most important rabbi in history of Krakow. And the father got to see it and got to be so proud that his name, Isserl, was going to live on forever. And that was all because he stuck to his tradition. Israel Isserl was so proud that his son, Moshe Isserl, became such a wise rabbi that in 1550s he founded this very synagogue to have a place for the family and the rabbi to pray together and for the rabbi, Moshe Isserl, to study together with his students. When it comes to Rabbi Moshe Isserl, there is a very beautiful legend connected with him. There is a legend connected with Moshe Isserl. One time in 1500s, there was this wise man from an Israeli city called Safed, where there were a lot of wise rabbis walking through Europe. The man walked and walked and walked and carried many different books to share with European rabbis. And eventually this man made his way here to Kazimierz, and he knocked on the door of the Rabbi Moshe Isserl. He said that he was a traveler, he came from far away, he was tired and hungry. Moshe Isserl welcomed him to his home and offered him dinner. The man had a moment to relax and eventually told Moshe Isserl, "Listen, you offered me a set table. Now I am going to offer you a set table." And he gave him a book written by Joseph Caro from his town, Safed. The book was titled Set Table, and it included a lot of different halachas, different laws that the Jews were supposed to follow. Moshe Isserl took the book, thanked the man went away. And Moshe Isserl read the entire book, and suddenly he felt absolutely devastated. He had just written an identical book, but his book, also titled Set Table, was much bigger, much richer, because it also included the Ashkenazi rabbi's commentary to these different laws. Rabbi Moshe Isserl was really devastated. He decided not to copy the book of Joseph Caro. He decided to publish only the part which was the Ashkenazi law. And this is the book which was published. The part that covered the same ideas like in Joseph Caro's book. He, in despair, packed together his handwriting. He went to a cemetery right behind the synagogue and he buried it over there. A big tree had grown in the place where Rabbi Moshe Isserl, also known as Remuh, buried his manuscript. Then when he died, he was buried right next to it, and his grave is still here, has been here since the 1500s. Because the Hasidic community really cherished Rabbi Remu, they had a problem with the tree. Because of the tree, they were not able to walk around his grave. So they decided to cut the tree down with an axe. They came one day with an axe, There was a beautiful, beautiful day. They took the axe and they tried to cut the tree, but then an enormous storm started. There were thunders and there was rain. So all the Hasids ran away from that spot and they never cut the tree. And this is how it is still right next to Rabbi Remu's grave. Legend has it that during the Second World War, the Nazis came here and they wanted to destroy the tomb of Rabbi Remu, but they couldn't find it because the tree covered it with the branches and the leaves. And this is how the grave and the cemetery actually survived. This cemetery is the second oldest Jewish cemetery standing in Europe. And there are still people from all over the world coming just to pray at Rabbi Remu's grave. His cult is still vivid after 500 years after his death, and that's mainly because of his great work, Set Table. Once in the Jewish town in Krakow, there lived a man who was very, very devoted, very rich, but he did not fulfill one of the most important requirements for a religious Jew, and that was tzedakah, charity. Every time people came to him for money or for some donation, asking for charity, always he would get angry and tell people this was his money, he had worked hard for it, he was not going to share anything with anyone. Very quickly, he became known as the miser of Krakow, the cheap man of Krakow. He died one day, and there was only a short discussion about where to bury him, because on one hand, he was very religious and very devoted, but on the other hand, he did not do any charity. So quickly a decision was made to still bury him in the back of the cemetery, in the least honorable place in the Jewish cemetery. There was a funeral, he was buried there. First Friday, after the death of the miser of Krakow, the poor people of the Jewish quarter were absolutely shocked and devastated. They woke up in the morning and they were used to the fact that every Friday morning before Sabbath, when they woke up and they opened their door, at the doorstep, they found some food or some money or something to help them go through Sabbath in a nice way. The first Friday after the death of the miser of Krakow, they opened the door, there was nothing there. No one knew what happened. Everyone for decades were used to the fact that this just happened and the stuff appeared there every Friday morning. Next Friday morning, they opened the door, and also there is nothing there. Very quickly, the people figured out it was the miser of Krakow who must have left all of this completely anonymously. And that made him from a miser into almost like a tzaddik or a holy person, because the biggest value is not just charity, but anonymous charity. Sometime later, a very renowned rabbi of Krakow, whose name was Yom Tov Lipman Heller, asked personally to be buried in the back of the cemetery, right next to the so-called miser of Krakow. And they are now still, in 2024, buried right there next to each other. In early 1600s, there was a man living here in Kazimierz whose name was Izaak, the son of Jacob. It was his big dream to build a synagogue, but he had a lot of problems with it. Starting with collecting the money, there is actually a legend connected with that, but let's keep it for a different occasion. Eventually, it took him years and years to organize a synagogue. He mostly had problems with the Catholic Church, which is right next door and is still towering over the Jewish quarter. But in 1644, finally, Izaak Synagogue, which is now behind me, was finally opened. The whole community came to see the extremely rich and beautiful interior. And sometime later, one of the Jewish boys was walking down a street and he heard some non-Jews talking about the plan that they were going to organize a burglary and they were going to come and steal everything from the brand new Izaak Synagogue. So the boy ran to Izaak, the son of Jacob, and told him about what he had heard. Izaak, the son of Jacob, was devastated because he spent so many years fighting for this synagogue to finally be built, and it was the highest and still the highest synagogue ever built in Kazimierz. So they decided they have no choice. They went to the chief rabbi of Krakow, which at that time was Yom Tov Lipman Heller. Does that ring a bell? That's the rabbi who wanted to be buried right next to the miser of Krakow. See how we are already connecting the dots here? This is the idea. So they went to Yom Tov Lipman Heller. So Yom Tov Lipman Heller listened to the whole story. He scratched his beard a couple of times and he said he had an idea. He said the gates guarding the Jewish town should be closed and there should be double the amount of guards that normally were there. But he expected that the thieves were going to jump through the wall of the cemetery, which was right next door to Izaak's synagogue. So he said there should be 26, which is a special number for Hasidic Jews. 26 of the strongest, the youngest, the fittest looking men in the whole Jewish town have to gather, dress in funeral white clothing, take sticks and go to the cemetery at night. And this is what was done. The night came, the city was completely guarded, the young, tough men were dressed up as ghosts inside the cemetery. The thieves came up to the gate, but they saw the gate was guarded. So they got an idea. Let's jump over the wall of the cemetery. They came to the cemetery, they jumped over the wall, and they started making their way towards the synagogue when suddenly they saw ghosts. There were some different strange creatures wearing white funeral clothing with sticks that started screaming at them and chasing them. They ran away and they never plundered the synagogue after all. And this is how Rabbi Yom Tov Lipman Heller, with his creative, clever mind, saved Izaak's synagogue, and Izaak could pray in his synagogue with the beautiful furnishing until the end of his life. So I hope you enjoyed the video and the insight into the Jewish culture and the authentic Jewish tales from Kazimierz. I promise you, if you come here and you walk around here, all these stories are going to really come to life and make your experience here much better. There is one tip I want to tell you as a bonus, let's say, for traveling here to Kazimierz, for learning Jewish history in Krakow. You must know that the historic Jewish quarter, Kazimierz, everything we talked about and the scenes you saw here, this is a different space from the ghetto from the times of the Second World War. The historic Jewish quarter and the ghetto are two completely different spaces, different districts, and certainly different history here. If you're interested in the topic, you can leave a comment below that you would like to find out something more about that, and then I will make a video about that on another occasion. And if you come here and you would like to have a guided tour, learn many more stories and learn more about Jewish culture, for example, please make sure you find me on tourtailorkrakow.com and you message me. If you mention YouTube, I will give you a special discount. See you again.